Hey guys, ever wonder where you could see Bangkok blowguns, bed of nails, bed of blades, belly dancing, fire breathing, burlesque, chainsaw stunts, light bulb eating, Hindu belly threads, or just watch someone hammer a nail into his skull? Well, it's Freakshow Deluxe, that's where. And today, I'm so lucky to be talking to the founder and great potentate of the group, the Reverend Tommy Gunn, from his suburban home office. He's the only reverend I know who's founded his own freak show, and so this is pretty interesting. Let's talk about how he got there, his amazing day-to-day life with wife and kids, who are also talented performers in the show, and his big plans for the show moving into the future. We've only got about 30 minutes, so let's jump right in. So I'm talking with the Reverend Tommy Gunn. The titles here, I've got a couple here to cover. The Reverend Tommy Gunn, El Jefe or Jeffe? Jefe.
El Jefe.
El Jefe,
El Jefe.
sorry. I'm in Canada, so
Jefe,
it's French
Spanish
here. The chief?
Dude, I was just in Halifax, and Freakshow Deluxe has koozies that say no cerveza, no trabajo, which is, no beer, no work in Spanish, which we're from Southern California, so everybody knows what that says. Nobody had any clue. I had to explain it.
Yeah.
I'll have to make French ones just for Canada.
Yeah, exactly. So you're the founder and great potentate of Freakshow Deluxe. You're also minister of the macabre, parson of the phantasmagorical, the apostle of the appalling, the vicar of victimization, and the venerable object of your affections, which that's the best for me, I think.
Oh, is that the best for you? Excellent. It's all true. And also best talker on the West Coast, a title that was awarded to me a few years ago. So I've nobody's beaten me at that yet. So that's still me.
You are the founder of Freakshow Deluxe.
We're a theatrical company that specializes in the classic carnival sideshow acts. So it's all the classic carny acts without that classic carny smell.
Let me just read what comes from your Facebook page. Freakshow Deluxe is not a collection of glowing light or avant-garde tribal culture. It does not pretend to be immersed into otherworldly magic or marching into the stratosphere on the wings of imagination. Freakshow Deluxe is certainly not made up of outsider artistic children who've never grown up, who wish to travel upon a modern-day pirate ship. No, you're the real deal. It deals in flesh and blood and pain and pleasure and flame, fire, and sharp, pointy things. Is that kind of sums it up a bit? I mean, it's not that I have any problems with Cirque du Soleil, but it's not that.
No, some of those phrases were taken off of the websites for shows that we found ourselves competing with for jobs a lot. Not a lot, but often enough that we all knew each other, But their approach was a very Cirque du Soleil, we're going to take this surreal art approach to what's happening. And we'll get into, we can talk about some of my history, but when I grew up as a working performer with my parents' show and as a working actor, I look at performing as it's a very blue collar job. Surrounding performing is a lot of mythos that to be an artist, you need to be starving. You need to be dirty. You need to set yourself, you need to drink a lot. You need to do drugs. And it was very different for Freakshow Deluxe to say, we're not going to do those things. We're here to work, be as amazing as possible, and to dress things up. One of the best compliments Freakshow Deluxe has received was from a lot of the old school showmen and some of the old school carnies that we met, especially when we did shows at the Magic Castle in Hollywood, California, which is a very famous place, of these guys coming up to me and saying, I love your show. It's exactly how everybody remembers the sideshow, but way better than it actually ever was.
What's the difference between freak show and sideshow? Because personally, I always saw freak show as encompassing quote unquote freaks, right? Which is the natural, I guess, people with
Natural borns.
deformities, basically.
Yes.
Let's
Yes.
not mince words. And
No.
and
No.
then you have sideshows, which is more like maybe act based. Is that correct? Is that sort of right, or is it more nuanced than that?
It's a little more nuanced than that. Historically, sideshows were any show off of the main stage. So if you go to see a big event like a circus, for example, they sort of came out of the circus. There would be, it's a huge event. It comes to your town. So the sideshows would set up to keep you entertained and give you something to do because, it's a huge event. You're dressed up. You've taken the family, you loaded them in the Model T or in the wagon. You drove out to the edge of a field to see this big circus. And the sideshows and things were all things to keep you entertained and intrigued until it was time to enter the big tent and see the big show. So sideshows didn't just compose of the sword swallowing stuff. I mean, we're looking at acts like, glass blowing, song and dance shows, bagpipers, all these other things, not necessarily just freak shows. But freak shows were sideshows. Does that make sense? So when you say sideshow, that encompasses everything. But when you say freak show, yes, you are specifically talking about not just human anomalies were a big part of that. But also in the freak shows to sort of offset that was also a lot of the working acts, a lot of the self-made freaks, tattooed people, that sort of thing, but also people doing amazing and astounding things like sword swallowing or the human pincushion or these sorts of things that were also considered freakish and also considered anomalies of sorts. So when historically then you're looking at, and I've got a wide range of periodicals and books and stuff that you're really is looking in the 1970s is when the tented freak shows really started going out of favor for a variety of reasons. You're looking at you're just looking at change in audience tastes. You're really looking at a difference of people saying, I don't want to look at that, which is pretty common. And when you look at the history of sideshows, when you look at the history of performance, circuses and everything, people's tastes change, and there are things that were a real big deal at one time are suddenly not a big deal anymore.
You're a real minister. I forgot to bring this up earlier.
I am. I was living in California, Southern California, near Los Angeles, and I knew all kinds, punk rockers, musicians, bikers, like all these different people that I was hanging out with. I was disturbed because they didn't have anyone to minister to them. At the time in Southern California, the trend was for all these churches, if you were going to be a Christian or you're going to be religious, then that meant you cover your tattoos, you cut your hair, you look like all the rest of us. And a lot of these cats that I was meeting who were like, wow, you're not like that. You hang out with us, but when we talk about things, you have a very good perspective. And, you can, you don't just quote Bible at us. You can really discuss things.
You were in theater, right? From the age of 5 on?
Yes. My parents had a traveling theatrical show, not doing the things that I do now, but doing other things. And a lot of it was very history based. So from the time I was 5, I traveled with them quite a bit. We were what I would call now 40 milers. We would travel more than 40 miles, but within like the tri-state area of their home, because they also worked as teachers. During the time I was getting my master's work, I ended up running this theater in Ohio, a big outdoor drama that had a big haunted attraction as a fundraiser during October. And Freakshow Deluxe sort of grew out of that.
You told me you did some work with fire, and then after that, you kind of moved on to human blockhead. I guess I can sum it up as basically hammering or pushing in pointy things into your nose is the way I see it.
The human blockhead encompasses everything, a number of aspects, but primarily it's the pounding right of a spike into the center of the skull or two, and then nailing your tongue to a board. I mean, there's all kinds of ways you can go with it.
So when you were growing up, you did your performance there with your parents who were ultimately teachers. You did some traveling. I mean, did you turn out to be kind of a real cool teenager, or were you maybe more of a book nerd?
I would say no. Not cool. Definite nerd geek. Because I did theater and music, and I took piano lessons and I did theater. I didn't really because of the theater schedule for all the shows and stuff we did. There wasn't time to play sports, and also My parents were like, "Dad, you're not getting football or anything like that because this is the money." It's a thing I tell my kids now. Like, you can't do something that's going to mess the face up. So I was a giant nerd and a geek, and I lived in a town where, of course, football was king.
Oh, yeah.
And I was a nerd, and I was this nerdy guy in music and theater and stuff like that. But what these guys didn't realize is that, there's a lot of girls in music and theater too.
Right.
And I was right there for that. So not that has made me helped anything with understanding women or relationships, because it hasn't, but it put me on better footing, perhaps.
So we have you, and then I guess the mom in the family is Miss Malice, and she also grew up in a performing family as well, I hear.
She was doing commercials, she was doing TV work from a very young age, from 4 or 5 years old as well, doing modeling, doing that kind of thing. So a different experience. Her parents drove her to a place, she did the gig, they drove her back. That was the difference.
Your son is Grennan the Green Monster, and he just turned 11. His, I guess, expertise right now is knife throwing, but he also does the bed of nails as well.
Yes, and he does some other acts, but we've been working with him especially as a comic relief, because he became, at 8 years old, the world's youngest professional knife thrower. He'd had the opportunity to work, through our line of work, with some of the best knife throwers in the world, with, Jack Dagger. He was familiar with the work of Throdini, and then Dan Mink, the Rhinestone Roper, who we'd worked with a lot. So he became interested in knife throwing and picked it up as a skill for shows. When he was 8 years old, and that was 3, he just turned 11, he was the world's youngest professional knife thrower, and really quite skilled. But yes, he also does bed of nails. He does a variety of different comedy acts and things like that too. It's great. And then his sister, who is 8 years old, La Pequeña Arenita, Charlotte the Little Spider, is hers. She does the family bed of nails act. She hula hoops. She can fit herself through a tennis, not a tennis racket, like a racket ball, it's a little teeny tiny racket. It's not a regular size tennis racket.
She's the one that you would send into the ventilation duct if you're needed to get.
If we were robbing a casino,
exactly.
I would put her in the ventilation duct.
I don't know. There's always ducks involved with some of these science fiction shows, so she'd come in handy.
She's been working actually with some of the contortionists and aerialists that we work with, learning some of their skills and really enjoying it. So I think in the long term, that's going to be her skill set that she continues to work on.
I came across a fairly recent London Mirror feature, and it had Grennan and his sister Charlotte in it. And it was talking about how Grennan was throwing knives not at Charlotte, obviously, but at targets around Charlotte. Earlier, before this interview, I showed my wife the video of Grennan throwing these knives around you as well.
Oh, yes.
It's on your Facebook page, and my wife just cringed. And I just found this part of the interview funny. So it says, Mom Alice said, "I'm nervous when they do the tricks, but I have total trust in Thomas," that'd be you. "I see how great he is as a teacher, and the kids have total trust in him. I'd be more nervous if Grennan were to play American football or Charlotte were to become a cheerleader." And I totally agree, actually. Football's dangerous.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's very dangerous. And that's it. The most injuries that happen in sports in the United States happen to cheerleaders.
Really?
And Alice had been a cheerleader in award-winning cheerleading troops when she lived in Florida and stuff. So, she knows that deal, and she was like, yeah, it's very risky. The possibilities for injuries are very high. What we like about having the kids in the act is the control that we have over it and how much they look out for each other. We were doing a show in, I think it was Memphis, Tennessee. It was probably, 100 degrees in the shade. We were at a fair. We'd been doing shows all day. And Grennan started throwing the knives, and he was just, he threw a couple, and he threw them at targets that I held, and then usually his sister comes out. And he threw a knife, and it didn't hit where he wanted. He threw a second one, it didn't hit where he wanted. And he was like, "This isn't happening. I'm done." He's like, I can't do it. And I was like, sorry, folks, he's not feeling it. So he's putting the welfare of his sister first. I never heard so much applause. You're at every mother and father just do like, "Oh my gosh, thank goodness."
That's true, huh?
Yeah.
At first I was thinking, oh, that's too bad. Maybe he should persevere, but that's not the sort of act you want to do if you're just half with it, right?
Exactly.
Hello, listeners. My name is Jeff Kowalski, and I'm the host of Creepypodsta, the Creepypasta podcast. It's a podcast where I invite two special guests to talk about virally distributed horror stories from around the far, dark corners of the internet. Are these stories true? Probably not. Listen to us at weaponizedlanguage.com or funtimes.online.
When it comes to your kids, I mean, I guess there might be this sort of idea that maybe a carnival atmosphere might not be the best for them because it might be too adult, or maybe there might be the wrong kinds of people, quote unquote, that kind of thing. Like, did you ever run into these attitudes? And also, did you ever have they ever gotten into any shenanigans yet? Or maybe this is yet to come as they get older?
The day my daughter came home from the hospital, we had a show at a bar. So there had a baby in a bar at a show. We'd set my son up at that same show. We had set my son up with an open tab and Shirley Temples at the bar. To which at some point during the show, he had run away from the bar, and you can see on the video of our girls chasing him through the crowd to run up on stage and be with me during the stage, which was hilarious. Unintentional hilarity, ensued. The thing is, and we've been trying to portray to the kids of this is our job.
Mm-hmm.
There's carnival rides and game stuff, and we find times to do all that stuff, but also being this is also our workplace. So, and they hang out with other kids who do carnival stuff, some of the other kids at some of the other shows, and have gotten along well. But for the people running families at fairs and festivals who are there with their family show, and we know several people who have family shows, it's very strictly regulated. There's still school, there's still stuff. We keep our kids in a regular school, and it's not like we just do our show and then turn them loose on the world. So we keep their time pretty strictly regulated, but we've had some great times too. Freakshow Deluxe does amusement parks as well, especially during Halloween time for big haunted attraction events. And a couple of years ago, we did a park, and the kids got to do a week because they had a fall break. We were living in an apartment inside the amusement park.
Really?
So, they totally set up. It's so awesome. And we were allowed to, get out at night. The park itself was only open on the weekend for the shows, but we could go out and be in the park and stuff. And that was the best time ever for them. They're getting this great experience of being in this amusement park at night and getting flashlights and exploring. And I taught them to drive golf carts, drive through the amusement park. They were practicing carnival games and stuff like that. These are the fun times of getting to hang out with them that we get to do.
Maybe it's just me, but I think it could be more prevalent than just me. I have some baggage from my youth where maybe I was told this by someone or at some point that carnival workers, they're bad news. The idea of raising a kid in the carnival or carnival-like environment automatically triggers this feeling of freakiness in me, which, based on what you tell me, based on what I found on the website, and also based on the fact that you guys, they go to school. I'm seeing on your Facebook this really mundane suburban layout, right? And
right.
Not grungy at all, right?
Right.
So really, I guess what I'm getting at is that people who might be listening to this podcast, they might have this idea, a freak show. These guys have kids. Oh my goodness, what kind of environment is this? But based on what you've told me, it's like a family, and you have families of families, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. With Freakshow Deluxe, and of course the kids have grown up with most of the members that we have, is unlike some people who give the lip service to this, because it takes so long to become a member and, to do things. And we really look out for people, the benefits of membership in Freakshow Deluxe. We help people with their private lives, with lawyer things, with entertainment. I mean, with their, as much as they, you get in, you get out of it as much as you put into it. We've been called a gang. We've been called all this other stuff too, because we really look out for each other. And that's, the deal. We don't want our kids hanging out with the wrong kind of people. So we're very picky about who we choose.
I'm sure the wrong kind of people are out there.
Absolutely. But I mean, historically, the fear of the carny and of the traveling show was also that sort of small town mentality, which even big cities, like I lived in LA for years, and in LA, which is this unbelievably huge city, you find your small town within it. You have your neighborhood that's your neighborhood, your stores you go to, your restaurants, people you see on the street and know all the time. I mean, that's normal human, interaction, and I mean, there's people in New York, who've never left their neighborhood.
Right.
There's always, I think, been a distrust. And I think this is a general distrust of people who travel. And you'll look at the distrust of gypsies, of travelers, the tinkers, if you want to use the Irish stereotype, of some of these others. There is this distrust of people who don't have roots, who aren't set down. And so because you don't know these people and suddenly they're in your town doing stuff and you don't and that not understanding of their lifestyle or how can they possibly live without a house and a this and that, because there's plenty of ways to, you just don't know because you haven't experienced it, or you choose to live in ignorance, which in this day and age is sort of, if that's the way you feel about stuff, you're choosing. There's plenty of information out there for you. That sort of, carnies are bad people thing is sort of, a lot of that is cropped out of that. Not saying that they're all perfect or any stretch, but especially in the modern carnival, because that business has changed in the modern carnival. The paying off of people and stuff is not it's not the kind of thing that happens anymore. Some of that distrust of carnivals as being sneaky people and stuff. Well, that was also because your local law enforcement was so totally corrupt. They were shaking them down for money every chance they got. There's a variety of things, psychological and sociological, that lead into that. Not that but there's still, like every community, there's good people and bad people. And, some of them are drunks and some of them aren't, and some of them are great. And some of them will just soon steal the pack from your back, take your shirt before you could realize it.
Tell me a little about what the goals are for Freakshow Deluxe moving forward.
We've been developing a show. The professor actually has been working on it. A friend of his found a record album at a swap meet called How to Do Sideshow for Fun and Profit. It's the only copy. He's been researching it. We've made that into a performance where that record plays. We invite, a member of the audience to come up on stage and try to follow along with the how-to album. We've had a production of our own musical written by Daniel Hopkins, who's a phenomenal performer, who's also did the Freakshow Deluxe theme song, and a Freakshow Deluxe album that's available on our website, freakshowdeluxe.com. You can get off of there. From Brother Daniel the Black Sheep, called Here Come the Freaks. That we use some of that music in the shows, and it's a standalone album, but it ties in with Freakshow Deluxe. We composed an entire musical called Vaudeville. He did the songs and lyrics, and then I wrote the script, and we collaborated on that and put it on a few years ago, and it was a great performance. We've really been looking to mount that production again. And then we've been working on several other shows. They're theatrical shows, and they use a lot of the elements of the sideshow in it, but they're great shows and they're great performances. And of course, Freakshow Deluxe still performs, our classic shows like the 10 and 1, and we still do concert events, biker events, all this stuff. We do all of these kinds of things constantly year round, plus providing for television and movie. I mean, it's a lot. And my goal, my looking forward with this company is that even after I step away, that it will continue forward and continue producing, that it'll bring out a whole new crop in sort of the, where there was the golden age of sideshows, and then there was sort of the silver age, which was the Jim Rose, the golden age when sideshows were king across the United States, on fairs and midways across the United States. Then the silver age, which is sort of the Jim Rose era, and it sort of came back. And now that's faded off. I don't know if we want to call it the Bronze Age at the moment, but working towards it, that, Freakshow Deluxe continues to emerge as a leader in the field of what's going on, and takes a lot of these new performers and turns them into the great, pushes them forward into becoming the great performers of the future.
Our listeners rather, can go to freakshowdeluxe.com. And that is where you can click on the booking link, and that'll take you to a form where you can fill it out if you want to have Freak Show Deluxe perhaps perform at an event.
Or, you want to ask a question, you want to find out more. On our page, too, is all the links to all the social media that we do. Through Facebook, your Twitter, the blog. It's getting better.
If you go to Amazon.com as well, you've got a book. It's See You on the Back Lot.
It's a fictional account. It's all told from the first person of the guy who's experiencing it, telling it to a friend, and you're his friend. And it's a fictional book that's filled with real stuff. The structure of the shows and because shows happen and acts and and then the behind the scenes stuff, a lot of that, while it is put together in a fictional manner, a lot of it's very true stuff. The slang he's using. And again, it's on Kindle for cheap. And I understand you can buy used copies of the book, pretty cheaply too.
Definitely. I'll be putting a link to the Amazon.com. Again, this is See You on the Back Lot.
Oh, thanks.
It's a book by the Reverend. And so thanks so much for being on the show. When it comes to the book, I think I'm going to have you on the show again, because I'm going to pick myself up a copy and give it a read. And we're going to have to talk about that again and cover some of these, some more fascinating and interesting stories about what happens in the everyday workings of a freak show.
Absolutely. Anytime.
Well, that's all for this episode. I hope you enjoyed the interview. I know I learned a lot. Remember, you can go to shareslicepodcast.com/iTunes to be redirected to our iTunes profile. There you can rate the podcast or leave a review. Please do this. It will bring you good fortune for sure. You can also subscribe to this podcast by clicking on the subscribe links at our website. If you think you're interesting enough to be on the show or know someone who is, please don't hesitate to contact me at shareslicepodcast.com/contact. Remember, the intro music for this episode is by Chromatics Music, Kromatiks, and it's used with permission. You can find them over on SoundCloud. Outro music is Here Come the Freaks by Brother Daniel and the Black Sheep. You can find a link to purchase that in the show notes. Thanks so much for listening, and I hope you'll be back next time.
Here come the freaks now. Watch them go. He pounds a nail straight up his nose. Just look at this joint now, the house is full. They came to see him making a whole lot bold. Here come the freaks now. Watch them play. He sticks the needle right through his face. Well, don't just sit there down on your ass. Stand up, a lady's here, she's walking on glass. This is the show you came to see. You bought the ticket, you paid the fee. This is the show you came to view. Now who is sicker, the freaks or you? Here come the freaks now. Oh my lord, now where do you suppose he's gonna stick that sword? She got a hammer and a bed of nails. She came to see the crowd screaming, well, this is the show you came to see. You bought the ticket, you paid the fee. This is the show you came to view. Now who's sicker, the freaks or you? You bought the ticket, you paid the fee. This is the show you came to view. Now who is sicker, the freaks or you? This is the show you came to see.